Good evening. The world is in turmoil from West Asia to Europe to the United States, and in midst of war clouds over West Asia, the President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, is in Delhi. He air dashed to Delhi. He's met Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The two are close personal friends, and India and UAE are also close strategic partners. Their aim is to increase bilateral trade to cross the $100 billion mark beyond oil. And this is a very crucial visit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to Palam Technical Area to receive the President of the UAE. They travelled together to 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. The images that you see on your television screen, this indicates the warmth, not just in their personal ties, but in India-UAE ties. Now, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri says India-UAE summit, it was short, but it was substantive. It reflects the close ties between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the President of the UAE, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Talks were both restricted, one-on-one, and of course at the delegation level. There are several key agreements that were inked. That's breaking news that's just coming in, including a letter of intent towards a strategic defense partnership, cooperation on space infrastructure, and UAE's participation in the Dholera investment region. Plus, there's a long-term LNG supply deal that makes UAE India's second largest LNG supplier. The two sides have also agreed to deepen cooperation on food security, civil nuclear energy, artificial intelligence, data centers, and supercomputing, reinforcing the width, the breadth of the India-UAE strategic partnership. For India, UAE remains a very critical economic and strategic partner, backed by the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which was the basis framework which led to growing trade, strong investment. India's trade with UAE, it grew to about $83.7 billion in 23-24, and this visit comes at a very sensitive time, especially in West Asia. Iran-US tensions remain extremely high. Gaza continues to simmer. Then there is the Yemen conflict, tensions between UAE and Saudi Arabia. Against this backdrop, the Modi MBZ visit and the dialogue on a wide-ranging subjects, it shows that the timing is very crucial. Tensions over Yemen. Riyadh's recent outreach to Pakistan reported Saudi strikes impacting UAE-linked assets in Yemen. It just adds many very, very complex layers to this visit. Now, MEA officials tell India today that UAE and India share a high degree of convergence on a number of issues, regional issues and global issues. Today's talks are all about charting the next phase of partnership. We will also tell you more about these images at the Prime Minister's residence. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is being introduced to the delegation from UAE, and the President of UAE is being introduced to External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. You can also see Hardeep Puri, Petroleum Minister, in those images. Plus, I must tell you, when the Prime Minister visited, welcomed Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the President of UAE, and his family at his residence, the Prime Minister presented traditional Indian gifts to them. The Prime Minister gifted the President of UAE a royal carved wooden jhula, a swing. And I'll show you those images of that swing because it's a beautifully carved wooden swing. It comes from the state of Gujarat. It sits at the heart of many Gujarat family homes. It's a hand-carved, detailed floral and traditional design jhula. It actually shows, watch those images, they're just coming up there. That's the jhula that the Prime Minister has presented to the President of the UAE. You know, in Gujarati culture, this jhula symbolizes the togetherness of a family, conversation and bonding across generations. This gift also resonates deeply with the UAE since 2026, even in the United Arab Emirates, is the year of the family. Then the Prime Minister also gifted the President of UAE a Pashmina shawl in an ornate silver box. This Pashmina shawl comes from Kashmir, an integral part of India. Made by hand, fine wool, very soft, light and warm is what we are being told. The shawl was placed in a decorative silver box. That silver box was made in Telangana. Together, they represent India's rich tradition of handloom and handicraft. Pashmina shawl in an ornate silver box was also gifted to Her Highness Sheikha Fatima bint Mubarak Al Ketbi. She was also gifted Kashmiri saffron, kesar, in an ornate silver box. Now, grown in the Kashmir Valley, saffron is actually, the more crimson, the deep crimson saffron, it just stands for intense aroma and is an integral part, not just in Kashmir, but even in the rest of the country. Before I get you more on the story, listen in to Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri.
The discussions between the two leaders focused on several new and emerging areas of cooperation as well. In fact, to capitalize on the new opportunities for civil nuclear cooperation in the light of the passage of the Shanti Act in India for sustainable harnessing and advancement of nuclear energy for transforming India. The two sides decided to explore partnership in advanced nuclear technologies, including development and deployment of large nuclear reactors and small modular reactors, as well as cooperation in advanced reactor systems, nuclear power plant operations, and maintenance and nuclear safety.
So let's try and make sense of some of these developments at a time when USS Abraham Lincoln, the US aircraft carrier battle group, is en route the Persian Gulf. Donald Trump, the US president, has invited several countries, including India, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, to be a part of the Board of Peace for Gaza. UAE, Saudi Arabia tensions over Yemen. Now, that's a cause for concern, not just for the region, but the world. Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey defense pact in the work. So there are many developments that are taking place. And of course, the bilateral partnership. There are about 4.3 million Indians, Indian expatriates in the United Arab Emirates. So that just shows how close the two countries are. Joining me on India First is Pranay Upadhyay, my colleague, and of course Sushant Sareen is Senior Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Pranay, sudden and short visit, but this is more than just a courtesy call of friends. While the Foreign Secretary spoke of some of the MOUs that have been inked, what were other aspects that were discussed here?
The most important and significant part of this visit was the timing. As you mentioned about what is happening in the West Asian region, the turbulent geopolitics of West Asia. At a time, probably President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan felt that this is the time to talk and have exchange of ideas with the Prime Minister of India, who has important influence in that entire region, and reaching out to India for more robust partnership. This visit might be short in terms of the time both leaders spent. It was only 3.5 hour visit, but very substantive in terms of the delivery. See the list of agreements agreed between both the countries. So it means that both the leaders share a robust partnership. They share a close partnership, and the kind of bond they have. If such kind of a visit can be worked out at a short notice, you can very well understand, Gaurav, that what kind of partnership Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan shares. And we have seen in the past that Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan visited vibrant Gujarat. Prime Minister Modi and Nahyan, MBZ, as he popularly known as, have carried out road shows as well. And see the areas, what the both leaders have agreed to work upon, be it investment, be it the space sector, development of the new space launch site, the new satellite fabrication facilities, the nuclear sector, as you heard Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri mentioning and listing out all those things.
Okay.
In fact, in terms of the investment, both India and UAE will work not only to expand the bilateral trade, but they will also work to expand the trade and export of Indian goods in West Asian region as well as in the African continent. So definitely it's very substantive in terms of the delivery and in terms of the geopolitical impact of this partnership.
It indeed is. Remember when Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the UAE in 2015, an Indian Prime Minister was visiting UAE after a gap of more than 3 decades. And in the past decade, 2015 to 26, this relationship has gone from strength to strength. Sushant, Sareen, symbolic and substantive given the fast-paced developments in the region. But this particular visit coming at a time when there's a Saudi-Pak defense agreement, Turkey is also trying to become a part of what is being widely touted as the Islamic NATO. How do you see this visit?
Gaurav, I see it more substantive than symbolic. And the accords that have been signed, which we've just been told by Pranay and by the Foreign Secretary, I am actually very curious to know what beyond that, because I would imagine that this kind of a visit, this short, sweet kind of a visit, is not just for coming and signing these accords. You could have probably scheduled it later as well. I am quite curious to know what were the other discussions which we are not being told.
Yes.
And that, to my mind, is what is really, it's not as though what has been signed is any less significant. I think it tells you the trajectory of the relationship. And this relationship has just grown from strength to strength, not just in economic numbers, but in the sheer, the depth and the breadth of the kind of engagements that we are getting into with the UAE. But I would imagine that, a discussion between the two principals uh, could not have happened unless some very serious strategic aspects of the relationship were not on the table. We've got some hint of it, of that letter of intent which you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
But is it something beyond that? Is India also looking at playing a much bigger role than what we have already played in West Asia so far?
So
Is
that
this
bigger role is Sushant Sareen. So let me just prod a little further. That bigger role vis-a-vis Iran, or that bigger role vis-a-vis Israel and Gaza?
No, I don't think either UAE or India is interested in playing a bigger role vis-a-vis Iran in terms of taking any kind of an offensive action against Iran or being involved in anything which goes against Iran, any kind of kinetic action against Iran. I don't think we would be interested in doing that, nor for that matter would be. I think the Gaza factor would certainly have come up. I would imagine that because I have no way of knowing what happened. I wish I was a fly on the wall when the Prime Minister and His Highness were discussing these issues. But I would imagine that the Gaza issue would certainly have come up. I think Israel and the UAE have developed close relationship. I think there's a convergence of interest between the two out there, and India fits in very well. But right now, the problem is also Saudi Arabia, because the
Yes.
falling
Yemen,
out between the UAE and
Somalia,
Saudi
the
Arabia,
Horn of
I don't
Africa.
think
Yeah.
it will last very long. But as of now, of course, there are tensions between the two countries. I think the UAE has acted very pragmatic and pulled out, not pushed
Gaurav,
too much on that
Yeah.
particular issue.
Yeah,
But
come in,
yeah,
Pranay, because GCC countries are also not in favor of US
absolutely.
bombing Iran, since the impact would not just be in the region or the Strait of Hormuz or oil supplies, but across the world. But what's the thinking here on UAE, and especially UAE and Saudi Arabia conflict, either over Yemen or the Horn of Africa or the
I'll,
Red Sea or across the Red
Gaurav, I'll
Sea?
be very happy if Sushant can add more context to it, but there is a pretext of this visit. MBZ was in Pakistan just few weeks ago. He was there in Pakistan at a time when Saudi Arabia carried out, strikes in Mukalla in Yemen, and in fact they targeted the Yemeni supplied, the Yemeni supplies there.
Yes.
And in fact there is an acrimony between both these states. And at that point of time, the Pakistani Foreign Office issued a statement which expressed in explicit terms the complete solidarity with the state of Saudi Arabia, and they did not even mention a word about UAE. So clearly this is a message. And now we see that, what Foreign Secretary has mentioned, that Mohammed bin Zayed Zayed in Al Nahyan clearly said and expressed that we condemn in equivocal terms the cross-border terrorism. All the perpetrators, financiers, and supporters of terrorism, cross-border terrorism, need to be brought to justice. So clearly, there is a divide. There is a shift taking place in the GCC region. Definitely, the sanctions on Iran impact UAE. Sanctions on Iran and the instability in the West Asia sector does impact
Yes.
India as well. And therefore, there is a new partnership which is emerging in the region. And we have seen UAE has now become, with this visit, the second largest energy supplier, LNG supplier for India.
Yes.
Secondly, or most importantly, UAE is a house for, like the highest number of expats, of Indian expats. So 4.5 million
4
people
yep.
of India are residing in UAE. In terms of the employment, in terms of the investment, in terms of the regional security architecture, the India-UAE partnership has a very significant role, and this is
So
also a
let me
larger
bring in
message, as
Sushant
Sushant was
once
also
again into
mentioning.
this conversation, because Saudi Arabia and the UAE, Sushant, are at daggers drawn over Yemen, across the Red Sea, over Sudan and Somalia. Would it be a tightrope walk for India, or are we very clear now, given the situation of that Pakistan-Saudi Arabia defense partnership, that India and the UAE are much closer?
Look, I don't think either India or the UAE is interested in going against Saudi Arabia. I think the UAE and the UAE has shown that while there were certain differences between them and the Saudis, I don't think the UAE is interested in getting into a long-winded kind of a tiff with the
Conflict.
Saudis. At least they will try not to do that, and they've given indications of that. Also, remember one thing. It's good that Pranay brought out the visit of MBZ to Pakistan, but he just went out there because the Pakistanis are literally begging him that, at least make some kind of an official visit into Pakistan. And then he went for his hunting trip to Rahim Yar Khan. But the thing is, and the next day, the Pakistani Prime Minister went to call on him. Now, the difference, however, is that the sheer, the nature of the agreements that were signed today, but more than that, also remember that UAE and Pakistan have had somewhat testy relationship. The
Yes.
UAE is not issuing visas to Pakistanis. Almost 80 to 90% of visa applications by Pakistanis are rejected. Part of the reason is that Pakistanis go and beg in the UAE. They create a nuisance out there. They bring their politics out there. They are involved in all kinds of criminal activity in the UAE. And that, of course, has not gone down well with the UAE. Secondly,
Nobody
I
wants to
think
give a visa
that is
to
very
chores
important.
and beggars.
Gaurav,
The
hear
United
this.
States has also put restrictions. But Sushant, if you give me 30 seconds,
Allow me to
should India
make
join the Trump Board for Peace for Gaza, since it's not a UN mandated effort, or keep it at arm's length? Because I'm sure that also would have been on the table.
Gaurav, before I come to that, there's one thing which you must understand, that inside Pakistan, over the last 2 months or so, there has been a sustained propaganda campaign against the UAE. They've been
Yes.
bad mouthing the UAE, they've been accusing it of spreading terrorism in Pakistan and all kinds of other things. But on the Gaza question, look, I think that invitation has come to India. I don't think we should accept it or reject it in a knee-jerk manner. Let us see what exactly it entails. Because as of now, it seems that it's a private limited company that Trump is floating, and he wants all other countries to come as board members and eventually probably put in $1 billion each. But what will be the responsibilities? Will we be shareholders? Will we call the shots? Will we have something to say in that? Or will we all be supplicants to His Highness, the great emperor of the world, the great Nero or the great Caesar, Donald Trump, where everybody is genuflecting before him and stamping on whatever he demands on whichever day he wakes
Oh,
up? Are we going to do that? So I don't think there's a whole lot of clarity on what exactly is involved in becoming a member of this board of peace. We don't know as yet. There is no meat on that skeleton right now.
oh, absolutely. And we'll be tracking that story very closely. Sushant, stay on with me. Pranay, for the moment, many thanks for joining me.